Hi, I'm Sarah. Welcome to Batch Cook Live. Today we're going to talk about quiche. And truly, because it's one of those things that I don't make enough, but I want to get more into my routine, just because when I have leftover bits and bobs, I tend to throw it into a frittata, so there is egg, or a pasta, because that's the other way to use stuff up. But a quiche is such a lovely way to do it. I mean, I like it a lot. I'll order it when I'm out, and I don't know why I never think to do it. So I'm trying to do it more, and I asked my friend Julie, Julie Miltenberger, shout out to her. She's got a billion years of experience developing recipes, and she is a master. What's that? Oh, my partner Seth has given me the in the ear business right now.
Oh.
Ignore
Somebody said
him.
they couldn't hear, but I think we're fine.
Ignore him. Just kidding. Julie makes quiches all the time. She'll just bang one out, in the kitchen. We need to use something up, it would be going bad. She'd be like, oh, there's a quiche. And I was like, okay. So I asked her what is a good formula for quiche, and that's what we're gonna work with today. So I'm just gonna get that in my bones, and then I can make a quiche out of anything, so long as I either have a crust made or a store-bought, which we're gonna use today, or one of those refrigerator ones. It doesn't really matter how you get there, which is why I have a frozen crust today, because I just want to figure out this filling business. So I am going to do a mushroom and goat cheese quiche, and this is 2 tablespoons of butter. So we're going to cook our stuff, and the gist is, get ready, okay. Lovely Seth. The formula is basically, for 6 eggs and a cup of milk, you can have a cup of cheese and 1.5 to 2.5 cups of vegetables and or meat. So there's this little framework to work in, and once you know that, assuming you have milk and eggs on hand, you can make quiche, which is great.
What's the ratio?
I put it in the description of the video. So sorry, should have mentioned that. And the description beneath our video has the ratio for you. So you can just copy it out of there if you want. All right, we are going to saute some onion, and this is truly, speaking of using up your bits and bobs, I in fact did buy the mushrooms for this quiche because I wanted them. This onion was on some chili this week. It is left over, so we're using it. A shallot would be lovely, but I had this around, and that's basically one of the points of this, is that I want to start thinking of quiche as a go-to to use things up, because we're in a never-ending land of cooking for ourselves and staying at home. So, I always have a little bit of stuff. Little salt. This actually started in my brain around Christmas time. We had a ham. And you buy a ham, and it is you could buy a ham steak and be a normal person, but we bought a whole ham, and we're we're gonna do so much stuff with it, which we did. We ate that ham in all the possible ways, but one of the things I was oh, I could make a quiche or whatever, and I didn't. And so I sort of put it on the schedule, because I was no, I really ought to start thinking about that more often. But this is one of the things where I'm onion's not necessarily a whole reason to make a whole quiche, but when you have this kind of stuff, or if I'd had leftover ham, even if you have deli meat and you're it's not really enough for a sandwich, you can shred that up and put it in there. So it's just a good way to use things. And sometimes a frittata's great, and sometimes a pasta's great, but I just wanted to have more stuff on hand. All right, these are looking a little toasty. They're looking good, and so I'm going to get these mushrooms in. This is 10 ounces of mushrooms, but it's, again, I'm just trying to work within this framework of you get a certain amount of vegetable, you get a certain amount of cheese. Julie Miltenberger. Well, I've already name dropped her because she's the pro.
She says it's a fridge food, that scraps from this and that are always welcome in quiche.
Yes, and that's the reason that I was I should try this, because the crusts are either easy to make, though I'm not, or easy to buy the refrigerator ones, or easy to have the frozen ones around. And I have definitely been relying on my freezer a lot in this quarantine. I don't know if you've heard, if you've watched any of the other shows, like we just thawed this, or we just had this, or we're putting the leftovers in the freezer, and it's been tremendously helpful. And so this was one of those things where I was like, that would be nice to not like feel bored with just use it up meals, which, you know, you can do salads, you can do noodles, you can do any of that stuff, but.
Melanie Wharton
That's what I'm-
says, I bought all the ingredients for quiche. I'm making it tonight.
Amazing. That's fantastic. Thanks, Melanie. Well, I hope that you learned something. Oh, so because this is batch cooking and I usually do just try to make stuff and have it feed us for a few meals, I made a second quiche already, so we're going to magic of television, you know, like I don't have a team for swapping stuff around. But in this cake, we're going to switch to quiche cam. So we have some live footage from the quiche. So that one, it's even easier than this one. It is spinach, dill, and feta. And in fact, that is an homage to my very good friend Julie, who will put spinach and feta in anything. She can come up with a use for it. So
I'd like to point out also the density of spinach in this quiche perfectly exemplifies Sarah, let's put more vegetables into it, Wharton.
yeah, I like to put vegetables and things, that is for sure. But the spinach one is even easier than this one is because I used frozen spinach. So I literally just thawed that, wrung it out a lot. And then I added some dill, but you don't have to either if you don't like it or because maybe you don't have it on hand. And then feta, but you could do cheddar. What's that, what, huh?
Julie's on the phone, so we're going to see if we can get this going.
Huzzah, a first call-in. Hello?
Hello.
Oh,
I can
nice.
still hear you over the.
So hold on, I'm gonna have to turn this pan down a little bit because I can't hear her. I bet the people on the show can, but give me 1 minute. I'm gonna turn this down. I'm adding some time because I like it. All right, I'm gonna turn this down so that I can hear her. Yeah, we didn't think this through. These pans are loud. I got nothing. Maybe you can like translate.
If I turn her up, does that help?
That would be great.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Oh, thank you so much for calling. Okay, so Julie is.
I'm gonna turn off my sound on my computer. I don't know.
Oh, right,
Oh,
yeah.
that's a good point. I forgot to point out that you'll confuse yourself with the delay.
So the obvious time to mention this is that you can comment on YouTube in the little fields, or you can text the number on the screen, but you can also call, and then we can actually chat. So Julie's calling, and I asked her, it's like, tell me about quiche. So Julie, this is your formula, and I am gonna get this nice and dry, but is there anything else that I need to know? Like, how bad is it to put kind of warm stuff in there? What warmth can I have before I start cooking the eggs before that goes in the oven?
Okay, sorry. When you first started, I was helping Lego Batman achieve a next level, so I missed. One thing that I think often people are worried about with the quiche is whether the bottom crust is going to get soggy if you put hot vegetables in there or something like that.
Yeah.
So sometimes it is good to kind of cool off the stuff that you're cooking a little bit so that it doesn't kind of like suck and attach itself into the bottom of the crust. And I saw you were using, I think you were using a frozen prepared crust.
I am going to use a frozen crust.
Okay. Yeah,
If
I
that,
think
like,
it's perfect, and it's
changes.
great to always have it on hand. I mean, you know, as you joked about that spinach feta dill thing. I mean, of course, I'm going to have those things in my fridge. And it's not hard just to, you know, throw a bunch of stuff together, put it in a pan, and then you've got this delicious. You know, it could be dinner, it could be breakfast, it could be lunch. You know, throughout the week, since as you mentioned, we're all working at home and. We're here all the time. So what else is going into this besides the mushroom?
This one's got goat
And I think you said
cheese.
onion, right?
There is onion and thyme in the mushrooms. Oh, and I didn't taste that because I got excited about having go. I'm going to taste this to see if there's not enough salt. But yeah, onion, mushroom, and thyme. And then the cheese is going to be goat cheese. Just that's what I'm working with. It could be whatever. It could be Gruyere if you wanted.
And it is also nice to choose, same way that you talked about with the vegetables, little scraps. You could be like, oh, this has cheddar and Swiss in it because I had a couple slices of Swiss cheese from sandwiches, and I had half a bag of shredded cheddar from something else. So, once again, it is kind of the ultimate, as we like to call it, garbage meals, because you can just throw as many little scraps of different things in there together, and it sounds like you're very fancy because you've got like a leek, onion, mushroom quiche, but really it's just because you had half of a leek and half of a package of mushrooms and an onion and some herbs, and it's like the easiest of cleanup dinner.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like the one pot meal or the sheet pan meal and all of that stuff. It's essentially that, because as long as you can like whisk stuff together, you're just dumping it in a crust. I did choose to cook these mushrooms, but like I said, the spinach one I just crumbled feta in, and I used frozen spinach. So yeah, it's like just only had to whisk eggs, which I'm doing right now, and I'm modeling wonderful behavior of cracking them into a bowl before I put them all together, because if you get one bad egg, and Julie can attest that I was traumatized by getting one bag of eggs, then you've ruined like the other 5 or whatever, so that's not good. So I am cracking them first. So Julie, I was wondering about the lovely make-ahead nature of quiche. So as I've read, you can like take an unbaked quiche and freeze it, if you can put it flat in your freezer, freeze it, wrap it, thaw it, and bake it. But more commonly, people just bake it and then freeze it. So how do you store that, and how long will it last?
I mean, I would bake it before I would freeze it personally.
Seems right to me too.
Just because I'm a bit nervous about what would happen with the egg milk custard mixture in the freezer. I mean, I think it probably would be fine, but thinking about like all of the stuff that's available to purchase already, like those little crustless quiches, mini frittata things, they've already been cooked, and then you just reheat them. So I think that's something that's pretty easy about quiche. And one thing that kind of a trick that I like to do now is that I've been cooking quiche in my toaster oven.
Ooh.
It seems that the bottom crust, the heating element is a little closer to the bottom of the pan, so it rises a little more evenly. Another trick that people do, again, in a full-size oven, is that they will heat up the oven with a pan in the oven and then set the quiche onto that pan. Yes. And so that immediately it hits the hot pan and the pastry starts cooking straight away,
That's actually, if you cut to quiche cam again, that's what I did. I heated up like a half sheet pan in the oven, while the oven was heating, and then put that crust on there. But it's also a nice way, like, if you're a little bit wrong about how much custard you put in there, it also means that if there's any spillage, it's easy to clean up. But I did it specifically for the bottom crust to get better. So, Julie has the most adorable son. So.
I mean, for the quiche cam, the spinach thing looks great. You can tell that maybe there was a little dribble that went over the edge, and that's a second benefit of having a crust underneath it. A pan underneath it so that it catches any drips and doesn't turn your oven into like a carcinogenic kind of nightmare. So.
Exactly. That's hilarious. So just for like those following along at home, that was 6 eggs and a cup of milk, and I put a teaspoon of kosher salt. Use less if you're using table salt, and then just as much pepper as I wanted. And I'm just checking to see if this is like cooler now. Will you grab the crust? Oh, well, clearly you need to do Lego Batman again.
Looking at what Melanie Morton said about that you need to saute veggies first, there are some things that you could put in there uncooked. I mean, not veggies per se, but if you've got pre-cooked bacon, that's an easy, like quiche Lorraine. The classic is just bacon and cheese, right? Bacon and squares. I'm trying to think of other things that you could put in there uncooked. I mean, you don't want anything that's going to obviously throw off a lot of water because, then that's going to separate, like the eggs are going to pull back from the veg or whatever the food is, and so that's not going to be ideal, and it'll be it'll weep and the crust will be soggy. So.
All right. Yeah. No. And I mean, technically the spinach is already cooked, but like frozen spinach, since it's already cooked, you really are just thawing. You don't have to saute it or anything. I didn't. I just mixed dill and salt and pepper and stuff into it. Okay. I'm putting goat cheese in. That was less than 4 ounces because that looks like a lot to me. So it's supposed to be a cup, but I was working with just a log of goat cheese. And then, so then I'm going to move this on. We're just going to put this in the thing. Thank you so much, Julie. That is so incredibly helpful. And I have your ratio on the screen. So people can see that. So we're going to just add the eggs, but let's see.
And Julie, as our first caller ever, will send you a T-shirt. It will have nothing to do with this show. It's just going to be a T-shirt.
A T-shirt.
Right, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll still continue to watch. Look me up there. I wish I could be there to taste it.
No, I know. I wish anyone could be with us.
Yeah.
Just here in quarantine forever. All right. So that looks good. So the thing on the screen was 6 eggs, cup of milk, just whisk that together with salt and pepper. That's your custard. The range of vegetables, like she was going with 2.5.
Sorry, hold on. I turned your volume down.
Oh.
Go back to where you started. My apologies.
As I was saying, sorry, he caught that he had turned my volume down. So that was 6 eggs and a cup of milk. I whisked it with salt and pepper. That's the custard that went in here with goat cheese and then this mushroom onion mixture, which I put thyme in because I like it.
Can you
But,
look back to the camera a little bit?
oh, good Lord, no, this is a mess. I can slide it. Does that work?
No, that's fine. We can see it. I just didn't know if you could get it closer.
I'm going to be a weenie and not lift up this like sloshy quiche. I'm going to get it at some point. I'm going to get it onto a thing. But, oh, wait, go ahead. Yeah, question.
Can you give some other like ingredient suggestions? One of our viewers lives with somebody who hates mushrooms.
Totally fine. So, well, we have our spinach and feta. So that's
Sorry, the question
obviously
was
one.
that one of our viewers lives with somebody who hates mushrooms.
So spinach and feta, that was a great one. So then, as Julie said, just bacon and, bacon and egg would be great. Bacon, American cheese, bacon, cheddar and cheese. I did one at some point in this quarantine that was kind of like a Spanish tortilla or whatever, but I did like potato and cheddar with onion, and that was delicious. So potato is great. I mean, you could even use, as long as they're not wet, as Julie was saying, like you don't want something that's going to be really wet because then it's going to mess up your custard. You don't want your custard to separate and coagulate. But you could even use like hash browns, frozen hash browns. I mean, like the whole point is that this can be so easy and use up things that you have left over. Like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I have some tater tots in my freezer that were truly disappointing. We're going through it in this quarantine. We're buying things that I don't usually buy, but I'm like, oh, tater tots are awesome. And then I was like, these weren't that great. But anyway, they'd be great in a quiche. But yeah, if you have like ham or turkey, even leftover cooked chicken, that's not kosher to put it in the eggs, but it's if you eat those things. But like also just egg and cheese is a very classic one. So if you do have a truly picky eater, but they'll eat like scrambled eggs with like American or cheddar or whatever, if you have Gruyere around or something, or like, yeah, feta, and this one was goat cheese, just literally plain goat cheese or herbed goat cheese. All of those things are great. If it's springtime or you like it, I love eggs and asparagus. Sometimes it's like you just eat eggs and asparagus, like a poached egg on asparagus with Parmesan, but you can put the asparagus and the Parmesan into the quiche. It's delicious. When I see mushroom quiches a lot out, I'm usually tempted by them, so that's how we ended up here. But yeah, if you don't like mushrooms, then don't put them in. Stick with spinach, potato, just cheese and meat, because that's always good. It's a classic, like a Lorraine. You got bacon in there. Nobody's gonna be mad about that. Or sausage. That would be great
Melanie's
too.
making ham, onion, and cheddar.
Ham, onion, and cheddar. So that was the one that we had talked about and then never made after Christmas, where we had our Christmas ham, because we were like, if we get done with like eating plates and sandwiches, and we had talked about a stromboli. Like we had a lot of plans for that ham. And it became a lot of midnight snacks. But yeah, ham is delicious, and especially like because the salty foods. If you have that delicate balance of like, you know, you have crust and you have eggs, then salty ham is delicious. So this is going to go in the oven. Although maybe I will try. I don't know. I have my oven on and there's a pan in there, so I might just do that. But I'm going to try a toaster oven at some point. As Julie said, that sounds really smart, and maybe it'll be a little faster. This size, which is a 9-inch pie. I'm going to cook it for 30 to 40 minutes, and it just, you want it to be, it's going to be mostly set and starting to get brown, which is going to be beautiful. There will be a little jiggle in the middle, and that's fine. You want that. You don't want to like seize up your custard. And I did find, I put this pan down in my 9-inch pie plate to see what the difference was, because 2.5 cups of filling when I was there with the spinach one that I baked earlier was a little much for this size. So I put the ratio as 1.5 to 2.5 cups. But you know, if you're using your own deep dish quiche, you know, you have a lot of leeway to put a bunch of fillings in. You know, if you have the deep dish pan, or you know, you can always, if you have either if you make your own crust, or you have the refrigerated kind that you can like roll out. You can also just like cut it up with a glass or whatever and stick it in a muffin tin and make little individual quiches, which is very
Hey,
cute.
Sarah, how would this change if you bought like those individual like small pie crusts or something like that, or like the pastry cups? What would you do anything different with the filling?
I don't think I would. I think, I don't know if this would stretch to a dozen, like, you know, if you have 12 cups in your muffin pan or whatever. I don't know if this would stretch, but I would keep the ratio the same. So let's just say that you made this 6 eggs cup of milk thing and you didn't get through all your crusts, then you know it's roughly 1/3 cup of milk for 2 eggs. Or you can break that down. I guess 1/3 cup is like 5 and some change tablespoons, and you could cut that in half, whatever. But like, if you think of it as 1/3 cup for 2 eggs, you could then like mix up a couple more eggs with a little bit more milk and finish that out. And the filling, I would think, would be pretty close. The cook time is where you would need to adjust it, and I don't know, so I don't want to do anything misleading, but I mean, I would like check it at 10 and see. I mean, you could even be more conservative. I'd rather check it as much as possible, but sometimes when I do egg cups that don't have crusts, because I've done a lot of egg muffins. We used to take those remember when we commuted to work and you had to grab breakfast and leave? So I used to do a lot of egg cups in muffin tins, that like crustless quiches essentially. And those would be like 18 to 20, but I don't want to speak out of school because I haven't ever tried it. I don't know what I don't know what those little crusts are like. But it is very flexible. And if you don't have it and you know what the ratio is, which is why there's not really a recipe here, there's just, you know, Julie's experience, which thank you. It gives you a formula to work with, and then you know what you can do. So, you know, like, yeah, if you need less, then you could do 4 eggs and 2/3 cup of milk. And if you need more, you can bump it up. So it's just a handy thing. I'm hoping to have a handy thing in my pocket because we're having so many use it up meals, or so many meals that we're trying to go to the grocery store a lot less. So frozen crusts were something that I was like, oh, I could buy that, and I usually have eggs on hand, and frozen spinach, and I always have cheese on hand. So you know, it really is like, it becomes one of those things where you can play around with either using things up or having it be like a meal that you're planning for down the road. Like a lot of times when we go to the store, we're like, well, we have to eat this first because it's fresh and it won't last. And then like, as we go down, it gets more into like either a
We have another
canned thing or a frozen thing. What's that?
Somebody wants to know, would tomatoes be too runny for the custard?
Yeah. I mean, my gut is yes, but you know, if you cook them down, and just so we're clear, because I didn't want this to be too runny, and I can tell this is not. These aren't like bleeding so much into the custard. So my mushrooms look very good, not to brag. But I had brought this out with this bowl because I was like, I might need to cool down my ingredients, but don't be afraid to like blot them. It's totally fine. I wrung out that spinach. I mean, we've all cooked with frozen spinach, and so you know, like, you got your towel or whatever. So like, if you like tomato, then don't be afraid. But if you like tomato and you don't want to sweat it so much, a little bit of sun-dried tomato goes a long way. So you could use that and you would get tomato flavor, but they're dry. Like they can either be packed in water or oil, but you know, they'll be much drier.
Julie concurs that sun-dried tomato would be great.
Yes, it's a good way to put the tomato in. But if there's something that you like and it's going to be wet, you can.
It's also a
just
good way to make a
pull
very 80s quiche.
It is a very 80s quiche. And I understand that, but they have so much flavor. And if you really do like tomatoes, you know, you could do a like pepperoni and sun-dried tomato and have a pizza quiche, and you know, it's all the things. But so yeah, now that I have messed up this cooling quiche, I think that's it. But thanks for going through that with me. I definitely want to try to make them more. So I have one more crust in my freezer, which is exciting.
Please like and subscribe and come back.
Oh yeah, like and subscribe, and thank you,
Every Sunday
Julie,
to watch.
for sharing your expertise. That's wonderful.
Tell them what we're making next week.
Oh, and then next week is pre-Super Bowl, so I'm told. I don't even know who's playing in it. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that. But we're going to make a Buffalo. What's that? Football teams are playing in it. We are going to make a buffalo chicken dip. So it's very appropriate and it is delicious whether you're watching the game or not. So yeah, come back next week, 3 o'clock.